Hello. I hope you can see me clearly. It's a very dim and dark day here today. Anyway, one thing I find myself praying about continually at present is that the Russian people will come to know the truth about what's going on in Ukraine. Mr. Putin's propaganda machine has convinced an awful lot of ordinary Russian folk that the Red Army has been greeted with open arms by the Ukrainian people, while their own army are shelling their country to pieces. Thank goodness, I said to myself, that here in the West we have a free press, which indeed we do. My complacency, however, was brought into question by what I read in my weekly paper. I only have one paper a week because it takes me all week to read it. It described a survey done in the USA of people's perceptions of their country's racial and cultural mix. It was perceived by Americans that 41% of the population were black. In actual fact, 12% of the American population are black. Black Americans thought 52% of Americans were black. 29% of the country were held to be Asian. The actual figure is 6%. Hispanics were calculated at 39%, whereas the actual figure is 17%. Native Americans were thought to number 27%, the actual figure being 1%. Racial minorities, therefore, accounted for 136%, or in black eyes 147% of the population. Intrigued by these figures, the pollsters asked more questions and discovered that of 200 million Americans, 60 million were seen as living in New York City, whose actual population is 18.8 million. 60 million were seen as living in Texas, actually 30 million live there, and 64 million were seen as living in California, actual figure just under 40 million. Looking at perceptions of religious communities, 27% of Americans were held to be Muslim, the actual figure is 1%, and 30% were seen as Jewish, actual figure 2%. By now, the pollsters were beginning to ask what's going on, and came up with a theory, which they tested by asking questions about perceptions of sexuality. Thought to be transgender, actual figure at 0.6%. 30% were seen as vegan or vegetarian, the actual figure is 5%, and 20% of Americans were seen as millionaires. In fact, the figure is so small it rounds up at 0%. The conclusion they reached from all of this is that the more the media bang on about something, the bigger and more prominent it comes in human thinking. Transgenderism is the in topic at present, and views of its size were the most inflated, 3,500% of reality. I was left asking myself, how much of what I think and believe is actually Christian, and how much is what I soak up from the media messages I take in day by day? Not so much facts as the presumptions about life the things I read or watch are based on. Maybe this is why, as life has gone on, I have become more inclined to spend time trying to understand the Bible. Because to understand the Bible is to understand the mind of God. I grew up hearing stories from the Bible. The story of the Good Samaritan, the story of the feeding of the 5,000, the story of the raising of Lazarus, and so on. Which is fine to begin with, because stories convey truths at a deep level and speak to the heart. But is my understanding of who God is and what He's like clouded by the spectacles I wear as someone who grew up in the Western world in the second half of the 20th century? Maybe I should dig into the Bible a little more and watch television a little less. Bye-bye.